When I was a little girl, I believed that my parents would always be there, that they would always protect me, and that they could fix everything. Then I grew up, and I had 2 kids of my own who also believed that their dad and I would always be there, that we would always protect them, and that we could fix everything. But then, in April 2009, when my son was 3 and my daughter 11 months, my husband had a heart attack and he died. And the only person with him at the time was our 3-year-old son. I remember the day so well. Martin, my husband, and Alex had gone to the Lake District to Caravan Park to have a few days of boys-only bonding time. Alex was so excited when they left, skipping all the way to the car and shouting, "No girls allowed!" This presentation isn't working. I'm going to sack the clicker. So he was skipping all the way to the car, shouting, "No girls allowed, Mummy, you and Olivia have to stay at home, ha ha." We'd spoken every day, and I'd heard all about their adventures. Today, they were coming home. The sun was out, and life was beautiful. I spoke to Martin in the morning, and he said, "I'll see you later." He never did. Only 2 hours after that phone call, I got a message saying that I had to phone the caravan park immediately, that my husband had been taken seriously ill. I was confused, panicked. Seriously ill? But I'd just spoken to him. Surely there must be some mistake. I didn't have the number to hand, so I ran to Google it. I dialed it, shaking all over. Somebody answered, and that somebody proceeded to tell me that my husband had been taken away by ambulance, but they didn't know any more. "Where's my son?" I said. And I said, "Put him on the phone," and he started to tell me excitedly how they'd wanted to go swimming, but how the pool was shut, and how they might try again later if there was time before coming home. I began to realize that this wasn't a mix-up. This was actually happening to us. Now, the room started spinning and I saw black and white. I don't remember the rest of the conversation, but I do remember going into autopilot. I threw some stuff into a case, including a toy ambulance, so Alex could show me what had happened. I then Googled and phoned several hospitals in the area, but nobody knew where Martin was or what had happened. Bewildered, I met his parents in a local car park so we could drive down together. It was there that I got a second phone call. Where we were, they wanted to know, because they would have to send a police officer to see us. "Is he dead?" I asked bluntly. The voice on the other end of the line hesitated, but then quickly confirmed my worst fears. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard. Martin, dead, heart attack. What? But he wasn't ill. He'd had no symptoms and there was no family history. Yes, he smoked, but he was only 34. Nobody said a word for the whole journey driving down. I spent 4 hours staring out of the window, trying to figure out what to say to my son. How to explain to a 3-year-old that his daddy wasn't ever coming back. How to explain forever. When we got there, I could see that he was very happy and he didn't seem upset. I got out of the car, walked towards him, and he saw me and shouted, "Oi, Mum, what are you doing here? No girls allowed. Is Daddy coming back in a minute?" My heart sank. I needed to say what I'd rehearsed in my head in the car over and over again, here and now, or it would never come out. I knelt down in front of him and I put his head against my chest and I said, "Can you hear that?" "I can hear a funny bump, bump, bump," says Alex. "That's right," I said. "That's a heart. Everybody's got one. When it stops beating, you can't breathe anymore. You can't talk anymore. You can't walk anymore. You can't wear little boys on your head. And you can't tickle people anymore. Daddy's heart has stopped beating, and he's never coming back." It didn't sink in. "Has he gone to work?" he asked, "But where is he?" When I tried to explain that some people like to think of dead people as up in the sky and how they could be a cloud or a star, he started to cry. "But I don't want Daddy to be a star," he shouted. "I want him to come back down." Over the next few days, weeks, and months, endless difficult questions followed. Some I expected, others I didn't. "Mom, how many more sleeps until Christmas?" he asked me one night. I sighed and tried to work it out in my head. "And how many more sleeps until I have to die, Mummy?" he added casually. I didn't know what to say. Time and time again, I had been told that age 3, my son was too young to understand. Clearly, he was not. And neither would other 3-year-olds be. When I searched the bookshops and the internet for books to help me explain death to my very young children, I was flabbergasted to find how few resources there were. Badger's parting gift was suggested by somebody. But as soon as I'd read it, I knew it wasn't for us. Martin wasn't old. Martin didn't know he was going to die that morning. And Martin wasn't a badger. Children of that age are too young to understand metaphors. They still think that death is reversible, and they don't understand forever. What children of that age need are concrete facts in words they can make sense of, without our emotional hang-ups, because they don't have emotional hang-ups about death. They don't know what it is. To them, there's no difference between asking, "How does an aeroplane stay in the air?" and "What happened to Daddy's body?" They simply need to understand. So I vowed to write my own. And I wanted it to look like any other children's book on the shelf, because I wanted young bereaved children to understand that death, unfortunately, is a natural part of life, and that they didn't do anything wrong. Is Daddy coming back in a minute practically wrote itself. It is written in Alex's own words. It's his questions and my answers. And believe me, he asked every single one of those questions as straight as you read them in the book. I've always loved children's books. And ironically, when I was little, I've always wanted to write children's books, but I never envisaged to write one quite like this. I'm a self-employed graphic designer, so I knew all about printing and layout and typesetting, but I knew nothing about publishing. Naively, I believed that a publishing house would jump at the chance to print a book for young bereaved children, helping them understand, because there was such a big gap in the market. But the answer I got was always no. It won't make money, they said. It's not about fairies or pirates or dinosaurs, they said. It's too scary a subject, they said. We don't want to frighten anyone. So I thought I'll do it on my own. I was turned down by several well-known illustrators and their agents, and then an editor told me that I should maybe change the story to make it more appealing to more people. Now, while she was lovely and she was only trying to help, I decided that I couldn't change the story, because this is exactly what had happened. And this is how the story should be told. Not nicer, not safer, and not more general. I so needed a book like this when Martin died, and I knew so many others who did too. I finally stumbled across Anna Jarvis. I commissioned her, and we started working together. The book was coming together, and all was good. By now, I was living with my new partner, John, and our 7 children, and life was once again beautiful. But then, in February 2012, I found a lump in my left breast. Now, I wasn't worried, because I'd had lumps before. No big deal, right? But this time, I was diagnosed with a very aggressive breast cancer. My children were now 3 and 6. I started chemo before the end of March. It quickly became apparent that I wasn't going to be one of those people who sail through it. With every lot of chemo, and I had 6 rounds of it, I became more and more ill, weak, fatigued, depressed, and scared. John, my new partner, took all of his holidays to help me with the kids because I was too ill to look after them. When he had no more holidays, he took unpaid leave. And then the company tried to force him to give him a return date. He couldn't, he said. We didn't even know if the treatment was going to work. So he quit. His family was more important, he said. So the money I'd saved to pay the illustration fees and to pay for the print run were used for everyday living. But I wasn't going to give up. I'd heard about and supported crowdfunding projects in America, and I decided to give it a go. Now, crowdfunding, for those of you who've never heard of it before, works something like this. You outline your project, you support it with videos and images, you say how much money you need to raise and how it will be spent, and for every pledge you receive, you offer a reward, so people can pledge as little or as much as they want, and the rewards grow. Mine ranged from a handwritten postcard, a social media thank you, special mention, limited edition print, signed book. You get the idea. But crucially, if you don't hit your target within the 60 days, you will get nothing. And no money will be taken from the people who pledged. Now, I needed about £12,000. But I was too scared to ask for that much. So I put my figure at 8,000, hoping to get somewhere near. Now, nothing, but nothing prepared me for the overwhelming outpouring of support. I had reached my target within days, and the money just kept on pouring in. But it wasn't just money. It was cards, it was headscarves, it was flowers, it was presents, it was drawings from very young, brief children telling me they loved me and how they hoped I would get better again because they wanted to see the book about the boy whose daddy died, just like theirs had. I couldn't believe it. I cried. In August, I had breast surgery. And in October, I started intensive daily radiotherapy whilst typesetting and proofreading the book. The page that starts, "Who will look after me when you die, Mummy?" sent shivers down my spine because it had taken on a whole new meaning. It had gone from the theoretical but statistically highly unlikely kind of thing to an actual possibility. But I cracked on. And the book went to print the same week I finished my treatment. I got my first copies in December 2012. Now, after working so hard to make it happen, and believing so much that it was the right thing to do, I started to doubt myself. I was frightened to open the box. What if it wasn't any good? What if people didn't like it? But within hours of sending out the books as the crowdfunding rewards, people were posting pictures of their children reading the book on my Facebook wall, telling me how much of a difference it was making. One young mum sent me this picture of her little boy. He'd been upset all day, and when she went to check on him at night, he was fallen asleep on the book about the little boy who was just like him. One young widow who was only 26 when she lost her husband had 2 young boys, and she told me how the book had been her lifesaver and how her 5-year-old took it into school as his favourite book for World Book Day earlier this year. But it wasn't just bereaved parents who sent me feedback. It was the bereavement charities. It was the head teachers of nurseries and primary schools. Even older people who had been bereaved when they were young took the time to get in touch to tell me how much of a difference this book was making to them even now. Now, once again, naively, I believed that once I make the book happen, bookshops would want to stock it and publishing houses would want to reprint it. But again, I was wrong. Now, it is a really amazing book, they say, for people in your situation. But we don't want to scare anyone, so we can't have it on our shelves. Can I ask you, are we really protecting our children by pretending the inevitable doesn't happen? Okay, so it might not happen to you, and I really hope it doesn't. But what if it happens to someone you know? What if it happens to your child's friend? What if they come home one day and say something like, Alex's daddy died? What does that mean? Will you have to die too? What will you say then? So what have I learned from all of this? Well, I've learned that my parents won't always be here, that they won't always protect me, and that they can't fix everything. In fact, I've learned that some things just can't be fixed. And for those things, there are only hugs and talking and listening, and that's okay. I now truly understand that it is neither my job nor within my ability to protect my children from everything. But it is my job to help them understand and to provide them with the emotional resilience they will need to deal with life's adversity. Because adversity will happen. You cannot stop change, but you can change the way you think about it. I want to teach my children that it's okay to be sad, but it's okay to be happy too. You do not need to feel guilty for happiness in your life. I now understand the true privilege it is to be here to watch my children grow up, to spend time with my loved ones, to enjoy the moment, and to be well. Buddha once said that the trouble is we think we have time. Now, we might, but we might not. So, see that thing you were always going to do? That game you were always going to play with your kids? That skill you were always going to learn, and that holiday you were always going to go on? You should really go and do that. And do me a favor. Tonight, when you go home, give your loved ones a big hug. And tell them you love them. Because you never know when you might not get another chance. Thank you.